and welcome back to more Hollow Knight. Episode 6 getting underway. We're going to start this one off right with a proper map break, Devatron. Where we are, where we've come from, and where we're going. Alright, so it's rare enough that in the game when I have the map open like this and there's a good view of many areas, it's exactly at the spot in editing where I'm starting a new episode. So this worked out, and I decided to go ahead and recap last episode since we can see it all here. And also because, if you recall last episode, our total progress kind of map break was delayed until the end, and we were doing a lot of it blind. So I figured this would be a good spot to refresh your memory and start out right for episode 6. Okay, so I'll do this really fast. We started episode 5 up here and did Royal Waterways, down, bench, and over Flukmarm, boss, back up, over, and then the Dung Defender boss, okay? And then from there, kind of zigzagged, super dashed over, eventually over here, Isma's Grove, got Isma's Tier. Cleaning that up, we went back. Instead of returning across to the Royal Waterways, we dropped down the bottom of the shaft and then entered the ancient basin over here. Went left, looped around. Along the way we met Cloth, got Pale Ore here, and then eventually back in here, met Cornifer here, got our map for ancient basin, down into here, and this is where we found that strange sealed door, and we need to come back and investigate that later. And then up and over here, all the way and around. This is where we did the broken vessel, and our reward was the monarch wings there. And then back up, we did the dreamer version of the broken vessel, which was called the Lost Kin. And then back, grubs and stuff along the way. I'm not going to be super detailed right now. Basically back and over with monarch wings, we were able to investigate up in here the palace grounds, found the hidden station, and recalled that we weren't able to enter the White Palace, the dream place, because our dream nail wasn't powerful enough to enter that dream. Okay, cleaning this up, and then from palace grounds we basically just returned. We did our platforming bit for the Whispering Route up this shaft, back into City of Tears, over, down, back into Royal Waterways, over left. I think we had a mass shard there, rescued a grub there, Cornifer up here, map break about there, and that's pretty much where we ended the episode. Recall down here we did a little bit of platforming and we rescued Bretta, and then we left off coming to this bench. Okay, so that was where we've come from. Obviously, this is where we are. Now, as for where we're going to come up and revisit the Mantis Village, okay? If you recall, way back in episode 1, we were here briefly, and we got the Mantis Claw, and we needed that in order to do some platforming through here and enter the City of Tears. What we didn't do is explore this hatch we opened when we flipped a lever, and there's some stuff to do down there, so that's what we're going to do first. After that, we're going to come back up and exit up, and notice there's a Whispering Root tree here, and we need to collect the essence from it. And from there, it's just a basic jaunt over to Queen Station, use the Stagway, and head back to Dirtmouth. And then from there, we're going to explore a new area, so we'll see that once we get to it. So one thing I want you to notice as we move back into Mantis Village and do more battle with these Mantis enemies is the color of the dots and the graphic bursts that emanate from their bodies whenever they take damage and also when they die. Notice how it's kind of white, not a pure white like the color of our mask or the color of soul. It's kind of an off-white, like a little bit yellowish or golden, you might say. And most important, it's not orange. And another thing that isn't orange about these critters are their eyes. Notice as we pass by them and do combat with them, their eyes are regular black. They're normal bugs. They're not these orange-eyed, crazed maniacs that we usually encounter down here. So although we don't know much more about the mantis other than this color difference that I've posited, they're still really interesting to think about when you consider some of the things we discussed last episode. For example, the possibility that the former inhabitants of Howling were trying to contain this apparently bad orange light stuff by using vessels. And the fact that, at least on its face, it does appear that this orange stuff is driving everything down here mad. Now, accordingly, the next question that follows is, why aren't the mantis getting infected? They are hostile and they're attacking us, but we are kind of in their home and they might be attacking us for another reason. Again, we don't know, but at the very least, why aren't they infected by the orange stuff? Now, coming up, we're going to meet the Mantis Lords, and I don't want to spoil the encounter, but notice that there are 3 Mantis Lords, each sitting in its own chair. But to the right, there's a 4th chair that is empty and broken. Watch what they do, Dev. They bow. Oh yeah. Big time. And watch what all the other mantis do now. Bow. Check that out. Notice that one clinging to the ceiling didn't attack us? Watch this one down here. See? He bows. So having challenged and defeated the Mantis Lords in what appears to be some form of ritual or ceremonial combat, we have earned the respect of the Mantis Lords and their tribe, and accordingly they no longer attack us, and they show this respect by bowing to us. So this to me is a strong indication that these bugs have honor. They're kind of like samurai bugs, if you will. And that is at least one major difference between them and the other inhabitants of Hallownest. And in addition to the Chest of Geo, we get a charm as a reward. And notice just the title of the charm, Mark of Pride, right? Very samurai-ish. As for what the charm does, it extends the reach of your nail. It's just like long nail, but even longer. And they do stack, although it's multiplicative, not additive. It is a very useful charm, just as long nail is, but again, we're doing more of a spell type of build in this run and not a melee one. So the Mantis are a very organized, honor-bound society of bugs. They're civilized. They use architecture and erect walls and build rooms. They don't just live in the wild. Yet this architecture, notice, while functional, it's very primitive. It's simple. It lacks convenience. Like, say, the City of Tears, there are no elevators. There are no stag stations. You have to walk here. You have to jump and climb and platform your way around this place. It's where you get the mantis claw, in fact. In addition, it lacks the lavish opulence of the City of Tears as well. There is no indulgence in art or beauty, no carved sculptures, no fountains or paved roads or windows with the view or crushed velvet curtains, etc. Accordingly, the Mantis are a very ascetic, monk-like society of bug. And if you think about this and the corresponding worldview or way of life, ideology, whatever you want to call it, and how it contrasts with that of the former inhabitants of the City of Tears, very aristocratic, very political, very driven by wealth and material gain, etc. Perhaps this difference in way of life will underpin our future explanation of why the Mantis were never infected by the orange light. Okay, when we get to the Queen's Station, you're going to see that I explore a small side room. There's going to be a big bug. It's friendly, and we talk to it. And then there's kind of a secret area with a hidden relic. Nothing special. But you're going to notice after I talk to the big bug, I immediately hit it with the dream nail. And this is something you've never seen me do before. And what this does is it reveals the target's thoughts to me. It's like I can read their mind by using the dream nail on them. And this is something I can do on pretty much any target. It can be a friendly target and they won't perceive it as an attack and turn hostile on me. I can use it on enemy targets. I can use it on live targets, or as you've seen with the Dream Boss, I can use it on corpses. Now, as for corpses other than Dream Warriors or the Dream Boss, you're not teleported to the dream world or anything like that, but their final thoughts are revealed to you. So you saw there that Big Willow here was actually considering, eating us, or trying to, but decided against it because she had tried other little bugs around here and felt like they were bland tasting. So she didn't try to eat us, which is good for us, right? Okay, so our friendly stag taxi is starting to remember that there is a stag nest from where he came. So we'll try to keep opening stag stations and look for that. As for our return to Dirtmouth, look who's waiting on the bench for us there, Big Devatron. That's right. That's big old Bretta who we rescued. Let's have a look at her place. Okay, so a mask shard, what appears to be an action figure of our bug hero. And what's this sparkling on the end table? A poem? Okay, so the darling Bretta was quite enamored with our rescue efforts. We should go say hi and spend a little time with her on the bench.
Madaula Misu.
Elderbug, as oblivious as ever, just as he didn't realize we rescued Sly the shopkeep, he didn't realize we were the ones who rescued Bretta. And speaking of Sly, let's spin some of our Geo and start with 4 of 4 mask shards here, Big Devatron. So there's a bonus life. We're up to 7 now. And he has another mask shard on offer. It's more expensive, but we have the Geo, so let's go ahead and buy it. And you see there, it just starts the process over toward the next bonus life. And there was yet another mask shard, this time for 1,500 Geo, which we could have got, but I decided to use what we had on getting 3 of 3 vessel fragments. And with 400 of our remaining Geo, we'll go ahead and buy up his last charm so we can continue to work on prerequisites for Salubra. And there's Bretta with her very charming exclamation. She's always very excited to see us, which is, you know, very endearing. As for this charm we just got, Sprint Master, very similar to Dash Master. I think it is modeled after some famous bug who was very fast. It's actually a great charm. It's only 1 notch, and it just speeds you up, your movement speed. So it helps moving around the world, it helps in fights because you're faster than your enemies, etc., etc. Unfortunately, it's just, I don't know why I never have that 1 extra notch slot, you know, in order to use it. So you're not going to see me use it that much, if at all. And here, obviously, I've opened the map. I'm scrolling around. I was probably thinking I might want to do a map break at this point, but given the flow of the episode, I don't think that's necessary. However, I will talk a little bit about where we're going to be heading. We're going to be going left of Dirtmouth toward the area where we actually started the game. It's called the King's Pass. And now that we have a bunch of platforming tools like Mantis Claw so I can climb up this wall and double jump so I can get up to this ledge, etc., we can actually go back to where we came from and explore a little bit more. Now, before we get too far into this, I need to bring your attention to our soul meter. Notice it's just about full. But to the left and a little bit below it is a small gray circle. That appeared after we got 3 of 3 on the vessel fragments. And if you recall, when you get 3 of 3 with the vessel fragments, it increases our maximum soul. Well, instead of just making the big circular mask hold more soul, what that last one did is it put that little small circle there, and that will act as sort of a bonus soul reservoir. So now that our soul is kind of full, as we collect more of it, that little tiny circle will fill up with extra. See how it's filling up right there? And also here you can see the new area we're in is called the Howling Cliffs. Now, as we spend soul and the big circular mass gets drained, if it gets completely drained, the little small bonus reservoir will then release its soul and refill the big circular mask.
To sta jugando. Hele somet. Vamos. Finelo.
Okay, so the Cyclone Slash, pretty cool. The nail arts are very cool and pretty important, although I don't use the Cyclone Slash that much. I do use the second one we get, which we're going to get this episode quite a bit. So I'll talk more about them after we get the second one. Okay, so Gorb. This is our first Warrior Dream encounter. And very easy, as you could see. We killed him before he ever really did anything. He's probably the easiest one. He just throws some spears at you. It's nothing big, but 100 essence, so nothing to sneeze at. And as we do more of those, they get progressively harder and harder.
Grulem, Zono.
So the Howling Cliffs map in hand, and it looks here like, as usual, I get away from Cornifer's humming and I open the map for a map break, but as you can see, there isn't really any progress to report on, so we'll hold off on the map break until we connect this Howling Cliffs area to other areas and until we get a little bit more progress to map out. Once again, Descending Dark coming in very handy. This is a pretty tricky cave. For some reason, the little Venge flies sometimes just spawn out of nowhere, and they're on either side of you, so it's very handy to have a spell like Descending Dark that can hit things on either side of you at the same time, as well as rebound and hit things above you. And at the bottom of this mysterious cave, a hidden charm, Joni's Blessing. What this does is it gives you bonus lives, 50% plus 1 of your total current lives. So at 7 lives, we would get 3.5 plus 1, about 4.5, say 5 bonus lives, which would put us at 12. The problem is they're all blue masks, and they can't be healed by focusing soul. And notice after interacting with the spirit of the blue child Joni, we put it to rest with the dream nail. That is something that you can do. It doesn't reward a lot of essence, just one, but it's kind of a merciful way to play the encounter, if you will. Now, as for the charm, similar to Lifeblood Heart, because the bonus lives can't be healed, it's often just not worth it. Plus, it costs 4 notches. So, like the Lifeblood Heart, you end up frequently with a lot of wasted charm slots. So another esoteric message stone, and this is quite a revealing clue indeed. It suggests that the quality of having a mind at all is in fact granted by the place and proximity of Hallownest. Hence, if you leave, you have to relinquish this mind. And what this is doing is it's tying advanced cognitive facilities, consciousness, thinking, etc., not to the individuals who employ these facilities, but rather to the place in which these individuals inhabit. Okay, now what's going on, Devatron? We found a corpse of a large bug. We struck it with the dream nail. Didn't get any message. We did get some, like, very red essence dots released, but we weren't rewarded any essence. Then we left, and in the antechamber, we started striking what appeared to be some kind of pyre with coals, but not with our dream nail, with our regular nail. And after several strikes, we ignited a big red fire, which caused a bunch of carnival-like accordion music to play, and a lot of earthquake-like rumbling. So, yeah, I mean, what in the world? So all of that, believe it or not, is what you have to do in order to start the first downloadable content module, which is called the Grimm Troupe. And that's a good example of just how hidden and complex a lot of the workings in this game can be. As for help or instructions when they released this DLC, all the patch notes said were something like, go back to where you started your original journey. Something like this. It was just a very non-helpful clue to just head toward King's Pass and the Howling Cliffs. But as far as the specifics, where to find that corpse of a large bug, the fact that you have to hit it with the dream nail first and then go back out and strike the coals of the pyre with your regular nail, start the fire, all of that was completely hidden. Just players had to kind of blindly figure it out. And I certainly didn't figure it out. I just looked it up on YouTube. But that is what this game is like. And even the original game, when it first released, nobody knew how to play it. There's no tutorial. There's no help section in the journal. Nothing. It's just one of those games where here it is, go figure it out and have fun. So getting back to the DLC itself, yeah, we started it, but what happened? Well, we don't know. That's another weird thing. All this crazy order of events and whatnot that we just pulled off, you don't actually realize what happens until you return to Dirtmouth. So just keep it in the back of your mind for now, and know that once we return to Dirtmouth, there'll be a little bit of a surprise waiting for us. Okay, so there is our completed Whispering Root Tree for the Howling Cliffs. And as for what's left to do, there's just a few things, but it's going to require us to move back a little bit to the right and then down and then over to the left some more. So let's get to that. Okay, so a nasty trap to fall in the middle of two elder balders. Once you realize you can just stand next to one as it curls up and kill the other one at range, it's not too hard. As for our reward here, the balder shell. This is an interesting charm. It costs 2 notches, and it puts a little shell around you when you focus soul to heal. So at first it sounds really helpful, because it'll absorb incoming attacks while you're focusing, but there's a couple problems with it. First of all, if you start focusing soul and then the balder shell takes a hit, you don't get hit with the damage, but your focusing will become interrupted. And if you hadn't completed the full channeling and gotten the heal, then you will have just wasted soul. And sometimes it wastes too much and then you don't have any left and you can't actually get the heal done. Second, the balder shell, it will break after absorbing so many hits, or if it absorbs a really strong hit, it'll just break and then it's not going to be there for a while. It'll replenish, but it takes a little while. So it's one of those charms which, sure, if you just had infinite charm notches, you'd put it on, no brainer. But in reality, it doesn't end up being that useful, and there are other charms that are better choices for those 2 notches. So obviously we've made our way back to Green Path by way of the Howling Cliffs. And right here, just to the left, is where we fought Hornet for the first time. You may recognize this. And if you recall, way to the left over here was that Temple of Un with that big acid lake, the Lake of Un. Here we are. Well, guess what, Devatron? We can swim in acid now. So this is one of those areas that, because we've acquired the right platforming tool, we're going to be able to explore, whereas when we were here earlier, we couldn't. So let's see what's down here. Okay, so a giant snail living in a pool of acid. Presumably that is Un himself. And he gives us a charm, the shape of Un. And this is an interesting charm, similar to Balder Shell that we just got. It interacts with how you channel soul when you're healing. And what this does is when you're channeling the soul as you heal, you're no longer immobilized. You're not pinned down anymore. You can move around and heal at the same time. So this must just sound revolutionary. And to top it all off, you can combine Shape of Un with Balder Shell so that when you're moving around and healing at the same time, you have a protective shell around you, right? Sounds too good to be true. Well, as you can probably guess, I'm not a fan, and here's why. First of all, while you can move around and heal, it's not the same speed as you normally move around. In fact, it's pretty slow and you're still pretty vulnerable. And second, just like Balder Shell, if you're not healing, then these charms do nothing for you. It's just wasted charm notches. You'd be much better off using charms that help you do damage and win fights as opposed to heal damage when you're losing fights. So accordingly, I'm not a fan. Again, here I have the map open, and it seems like a good spot for a map break, because we have done quite a bit, actually. But once we're back in Dirtmouth, I'm going to have a little bit more zoomed out view of the map, and it'll be better to do a map break then.
오, 뒷자리.
Babala Geno.
So lighting the lantern in the Howling Cliffs has called Grimm and his troupe to Hallownest, and with them their search for this particular scarlet flame, which in Grimm's words is the flame of dreams. And also with the Grimm Troupe comes a ritual which involves, first of all, the Grimmkin, who have already started scouring Hallownest for this scarlet flame. And evidently we have a role to play in collecting that flame from them, and to aid in this, we were given a charm, the Grimm Child. When we wear this charm, we are accompanied by the Grimm Child, who will help us see and interact with the Grimmkin throughout the world. Okay, as promised, a nice zoomed out view of the Howling Cliffs and how it connects with Green Path. So good spot for a map break. Now, as for these Scarlet Flame icons, I'm going to talk more about them after the map break. Obviously, they are the locations of the Grimmkins and where we need to go with the Grimm Child in order to collect the Scarlet Flame for Troop Master Grimm. As for the map break, recall we started over here in Dirtmouth. We had done some shopping, and we just went left and were able to platform up and get back into King's Pass where we started the game. We just made our way around, and with some platforming we made our way up into the Howling Cliffs. Once here we immediately found the bench, and with it Nail Master Mateau, who taught us our first nail art, the Cyclone Slash. Okay, let me clean this up. From there we went up here and met our first Dream Warrior Gorb and did combat with him, and then from there into this part of the map and down here about is where we got Cornifer and the map itself. Okay, after that we went into this sort of strange blue cave which is called Joni's Repose, found the corpse and spirit of Joni, and were rewarded with the Joni's Blessing charm. Okay. Cleaning that up from there, we went back out and down into some of these sort of more secret areas or hidden areas. We found the corpse of the large bug, hit it with the dream nail, lit the lantern here, which caused, Grimm and his troop to sort of show up here in Dirtmouth, and that started the DLC. And otherwise, we just sort of explored the rest of this area and did a whispering route, and we went all over the place collecting the essence. And then to the right and down, fought the two Elder Balders and got Balder Shell here. And then made our way left where it connects back to Green Path. Now again, we could have, say, stagged here and gone this way and then come up and gotten into Howling Cliffs from Green Path. But this is just the way we did it. But just so you know, you can get to Howling Cliffs from either way. Okay, once here we went over to this area where we first fought Hornet, and then to the left to the Lake of Un, and it's a little cut off here, but you remember we just made our way down because we had Isthmus Tyr and could swim in the acid, and we met Un and got the Shape of Un charm, and then from there back and over to the Stagway station, and from there we stagged to Dirtmouth, which is where we are now, and we met Grimm, etc. Okay, now moving forward, we're going to stag back to the exact same stag station in Green Path, and then we're going to come down. We're going to explore this unexplored area over here. There's going to be some platforming and a surprise down there. Then come back to the right. Up here, there is an unexplored area with a surprise. And then back down here, and obviously we're going to encounter our first Grimmkin and get our first Scarlet Flame. From there, we're going to come over to the right here. Let's do it more like this, and down into this unexplored area. And there is a surprise down here and a bench down here. So, again, I don't want to ruin all the surprises. I just want to give you a general view, an idea of the directions we're going to be going, so that you can start to, familiarize yourself with the map and where you are and how it relates to the other areas around it and where we've been, okay? Okay, and back to the game footage, you can see there's a scarlet flame up in the Crystal Peak area, then the one here that we just talked about in the map break in Green Path, and then another one in the City of Tears, very near the city storeroom, Stagway Station, okay? So those don't show up on your map unless you have Grimm Child equipped, okay? So sometimes I'll take it off if we're not going to be doing a flame because, you know, hey, it's 2 charm slots, right? But if we are going to be doing a flame, then I'll put it on and we'll be able to see where we need to go and do what we need to do. So here we are with our Grimm Child companion, and he's quite cute. He makes cute noises, and, you know, he's a faithful companion. He doesn't do much right now. As we acquire more and more flames, the Grimm Child will grow in size, and he'll eventually start having some attacks of his own. Now, he can't take any damage or be killed or anything like that, but he can do some offense on his own once he grows a little stronger. It's nothing big or anything to get excited about, but it is kind of fun to watch and something to look forward to. All right, so one of the more difficult platforming challenges in the early part of the game, I recall kind of getting to this point and looking up how to do it on YouTube and whatnot, and just thinking, oh my God, I'll never be able to do that. The funny thing is, as I edit this now, and of course I've done much more difficult challenges and whatnot, this is so elementary and easy that it's kind of funny that I at one point thought this was, you know, going to be the end-all platforming challenge for the whole game.
To sta jugando. Go aname, churo.
And as promised, our second nail art of the episode, this is the Great Slash. Great Slash is hands down the best nail art of the three, and it's one I'm going to be using a lot, even though I'm more of a magic damage-based type of build. It does a lot of damage, and it has a big area of effect. The arc is quite large, and for a build like mine, which neglects charms like Long Nail or Mark of Pride, it really helps get a lot of extra reach out of my nail attack. Now, as far as how the nail arts work, you get the idea, right? You hold down the attack button, and it sort of focuses the energy into the nail. When it's ready, it kind of hums and glows around you. And then when you release it, you perform the Great Slash. However, if you are holding up or down on the directional stick when you release it, you're going to do the Cyclone Slash, which spins you in the circle and does a lot of hits. And then there's another directional associated with the third nail art, which we're going to get much later in the game. So there are just certain enemies and certain fights in the game where Great Slash is really the attack that you want to do, even for a spell build like mine. The problem is that oftentimes you still have to jump around while you're holding down the attack button. And using the default key bindings on an Xbox One controller anyway, you'd have to hold down X with the tip of your thumb, but then still jump around and do platforming feats with kind of the inside knuckle of your thumb on the A button. Well, I found this very uncomfortable and very awkward. And I don't know if you remember at that point in my initial playthroughs of this game, I actually switched the key bindings up, which set me back just loads of time, having to retrain my hands. But in the end, I really found it to be a lot more comfortable and a lot more sustainable. So now I use the right trigger, and you can picture that just holding that in like you're holding in a trigger with your index finger, and then the tip of your thumb is free to hit the A button and jump around all you need. Much better. Okay, a hidden charm, the Thorns of Agony. It's actually not a bad charm at all, mostly because it only costs one notch. What it does is when you take damage, these sort of electrified thorns just shoot out from you and hit anything around you. The downside is a lot of times when things are doing damage to you, believe it or not, they're not really that close to you, or at least they're not, once a second or two has passed by after you've taken damage. So I rarely use that charm. Okay, so our first Scarlet Flame collected, and you get the idea. You find the Grimmkins, they've kind of harvested the flame, and then you gotta fight them and kill them to get it from them, and the Grimmchild absorbs it. Now, as you saw, they have a few attacks, whatever. They're really not that difficult. However, as you collect these and return them to Troop Master Grimm, he has you go out and collect more and more of them. And each sort of phase of this flame collecting that we deal with, the Grimmkins start to get harder and harder. And by the final wave or two of collecting these flames, the Grimmkins are very difficult and very dangerous. Very easy to die to, in fact. So Shaman Stone, Grub Song, and what? Fluke Nest. What is this sinister charm lineup all about? So obviously we're heading off to probably do a boss of sorts. So you can tell when there's never Compass or Swarm equipped. But most important, we're going to get to see Fluke Nest. I did kind of talk it up a lot, like some of the highest damage in the game. But I haven't, equipped it or shown it to you. So this is going to be the first time you get to see it. And it's a really good example of just how powerful it is. So let's head in here and see what's going on. So this place has a name, the Stone Sanctuary, but notice it's kind of empty. It's kind of dark and it's kind of creepy. So we're going to have to explore a little bit before we know exactly what's going on in this place. Okay, so quite the eerie warrior dream encounter, rewarding us 200 essence. And I do want to mention Fluke Nest and its performance, but I think it's best to talk about No Eyes and her dialogue while it's still fresh. So what's most confusing about No Eyes' dialogue is that she's speaking for two different parties, both herself, the actual warrior, and also the children for whom she was caring. Now my guess is that both the warrior and the children were driven mad by the orange light. As for No Eyes, she probably didn't perceive her actions as threatening to the children. She probably thought she was trying to calm them down from a nightmare and help them sleep, when in fact she was harming them and eventually killing them. And as for the children, I think they perceived of No Eyes as the monster who had come for them in the night, and accordingly tried to defend themselves and ended up clawing out the warrior's eyes. And last, having been defeated and awoken from the dream, she asked to be taken to a place with no light and hence no dreams. This could explain why, for so many years, she has haunted such a dark place as the Stone Sanctuary, where, without the aid of the Lumifly lantern, you cannot see. Okay, a massive moss charger Devatron. That is the official name of that enemy. And I believe it's really just several of those little bugs that make up the regular moss chargers, and they just sort of like form together to make a massive version of it, which is pretty funny. So you kind of have to respect them, you know, ganging up and trying to be bigger than they really are. So I think we've said enough about No Eyes, but just to wrap it up, while my interpretation may seem a little weak or far-fetched, if you go back and actually analyze the dialogue, you'll see that it really doesn't make any sense at all unless there is in fact more than one speaker, specifically both the warrior and the children. And second, while it's certainly not very comforting, it is yet more evidence in this growing mountain of evidence that this orange light stuff just wreaked a lot of havoc in Hallownest history, and not even its greatest warriors were immune, and in fact it drove them to commit some very vile and regrettable acts. Now as for Fluke Nest, I know you really didn't get to see much of it, but in a sense that's kind of a case in point, right? It only took 3 spells to take out a boss, and even with that, not all the baby flukes hit it, so you can see just how much damage it's capable of. On the downside, it's very hard to control. As you saw, the little baby flukes just kind of flop out there and just, you know, writhe around wherever they land. It's not a nice clean ball of magic that shoots across the screen like Shade Soul normally is. So you have to get in very close to the target, but if you can and get all those flukes to hit it, it's just lights out. So an interesting message written in such a way as to suggest there was a former group who used to kind of own or occupy this green path area and perhaps beyond. And notice it was written on a different type of message stone, not the typical "these words are for you higher beings" type of message stone, but rather a type known as a mossy tablet, of which we've seen one in Green Path way back in episode 2, which spoke of Un. If you recall, it said, "In every bush and every vine, the mind of Un reveals itself to us." So it turns out that big snail guy, Un, who we met, not only has he been around a long time, but he used to be worshipped as some kind of creator or deity and revered as a type of leader, enforcer of law in this area of Green Path. And who knows, maybe over a lot of millennia, his acidic snail ooze actually did help give form and shape to this area, the passageways, the nooks and crannies, the pools of acid. Who knows? At any rate, Un and his followers almost certainly predate Hallownest and its civilization. In the meantime, they've either disappeared or, perhaps unbeknownst to us, have coexisted alongside any and all who travel the Green Path. So I'll close with those musings on the origin of Green Path and its former civilizations. Hope you're enjoying Hollow Knight. We'll see you in the next episode.